From standard internet drama to the worrying normalization of real-world predators, this is the dark and disturbing Smiling Friends community iceberg. Starting with Level 1, The Surface. Case 1, the Ajit Pai caricature. In the early 2000s, long before network television deals, creators like Zach Hadel built their careers in the unregulated world of the early internet. Since sites like Newgrounds had no rules or corporate sponsors back then, the environment became a lawless space where anything went. As one person on Reddit said, the 2000s was a wild time to be on the internet. Some places like Newgrounds had little to no moderation, so you can easily stumble upon some really messed up stuff. People that complained about it were the ones getting banned. Another person also added that, I'd say 2005 to 2009 was when you could say anything online, and if you just said you were trolling, everyone would just laugh. This also meant that to actually get noticed, animators had to be as loud and offensive as possible, creating a kind of shock value economy where the fastest way to gain attention was to be as weird, ugly, and uncomfortable as possible. Zach Hadel mastered that style by filling his drawings with characters that looked deliberately unpleasant with bulging eyes, crooked faces, swollen gums, and teeth so gross they looked like they were actively rotting. Instead of polished or attractive designs, the joke was often in how disturbing the characters looked the moment they appeared, and while the style was heavily celebrated at the time, it eventually became a huge problem. Once an internet creator moved on to bigger roles and secured a mainstream television show, their unregulated history became a massive liability that a new audience could easily use against them. By 2017, the internet had changed, and one of the bigger online fights exploded over new regulations called net neutrality. At the center of it was FCC chairman Ajit Pai, who became one of the internet's #1 villains because people believed his plans would let huge internet companies decide which websites loaded fast, which ones slowed down, and which voices got pushed aside. And instead of calming those fears, he released a sarcastic video.
I really enjoyed the public debate about the future of the internet, and I especially appreciate some of your tweets.
This only made people more furious. With the internet looking for a target, Zach Hadel stepped in and did it the way he knew best. Using his signature style, he turned Ajit Pai into a heavily distorted caricature that looked as ugly and smug as people already imagined him to be. While this might seem controversial now, it was universally celebrated in 2017 because it was seen as a satisfying way to humiliate a hated political figure. The drawing went incredibly viral, even reaching the front page of Reddit and inspiring a massive street mural in Australia, which made Hadel look like a digital hero at the time. People even suggested more ways to make the image more disturbing, with one person commenting, "I thought he was making the teeth bigger." However, digital context shifted rapidly. Things changed 5 years later when Smiling Friends became a massive hit in Adult Swim. This brought in millions of new, younger fans who grew up on platforms with strict rules, so they started digging into Zach Hadel's past. By this time, it transitioned from an independent internet animator to a mainstream television powerhouse working on Smiling Friends. Because this newer audience didn't know anything about the unregulated Newgrounds era or the 2017 protests, they saw the old drawing of Ajit Pai in a completely different light. When people found the drawing again, the original political context was totally lost. Instead of seeing it as a 2017 protest against net neutrality changes, they saw a white artist who had drawn an exaggeratedly ugly picture of an Indian American man. It became a perfect example of context collapse. It's when something made for one group of people is judged years later by a completely different crowd. That shift can be seen in how people began describing art online. Zach Psychic Pebbles Hadel, the creator of the new Adult Swim show Smiling Friends, is a racist. Here's some racist caricature art he did of Ajit Pai. Eventually, this sparked a massive digital fight where longtime fans defended Hadel's edgy humor, while a new generation of viewers demanded that everyone boycott the show. Because the internet never truly forgets, this situation served as a big warning that a creator's messy past is always tied to their professional career today. Moving deeper into the iceberg, the controversies escalate from edgy drawings to actual real-world threats. Level 2, The Shallows. Case 2, the unfiltered vocabulary of Oni Plays. While Smiling Friends shows a polished, TV-ready version of Zach's humor, his work on the YouTube channel Oni Plays reveals a much more controversial footprint. To understand the connection, you have to realize that Zach is the co-creator of Smiling Friends, the voice of Charlie, and a frequent guest on Oni Plays because he's longtime friends with the channel's creator, Chris O'Neill. In fact, most of the Oni Plays crew have voice roles in the show, and Chris even handles music and 3D animation. Because of this, a lot of the humor in Smiling Friends actually started as inside jokes or references from Oni Plays in their older podcast, Sleepycast. Between 2017 and 2019, Zach was a constant presence in the channel, where the recording sessions from this era were notoriously informal, often taking place in the middle of the night in a rented room at the Game Grumps office. In this insulated environment, banter was pure. messy and completely unfiltered. Conversations jumped like stream of consciousness, and slurs or homophobic jokes are often thrown around casually as part of the humor. But the bigger controversy wasn't just that this language was used, but how the community actively preserved it. While most fans create compilations of a creator's best moments, some dedicated Only Plays fans carefully archive the channel's most offensive jokes. Because of that, even people who never watched the show still formed strong opinions about it. As one person put it, they never got into the show because they had always known that specific circle of creators as cringe, ironic, slur-using edgelords. To this day, slur compilations still circulate on YouTube, ensuring this unfiltered language remains accessible despite modern platform rules. But for newer Smiling Friends fans, stumbling onto these videos was a massive culture shock. Many had only known Zach through the polished success of the show, so finding years of edgy, chaotic YouTube clips felt like discovering a completely different person. And as Zach's mainstream fame grew, these old clips eventually caught the attention of internet watchdog communities. Massive threads began appearing in forums like Reset Era and subreddits like r/YouTube Drama, where critics condemned the past comments and the fanbase itself. In response, the community developed an aggressive defense rooted in irony, often dismissing outsiders as being too sensitive. These fans used the offensive material to ward off mainstream viewers, but many critics argue that the community itself is the bigger problem. As one person pointed out, the Only Plays fanbase is actually way more demented and edgy than the show itself, and while the creators have their own questionable jokes, the fans are the ones who always take it too far. In the end, this dynamic ensures that Zach's current success permanently tied to a messy, controversial past that his most loyal fans refuse to let go of. And that same pattern inside the community leads directly into the next case, because the focus slowly shifts from the creator himself to the fanbase that kept preserving and defending all of it. Level 3. The Abyss. Case 3. Subreddit tribalism and doxing threats. Even though Smiling Friends is a massive hit, its success has created a weirdly competitive rift within the Adult Swim community. This friction is most obvious in the beef between fans of Smiling Friends and Rick and Morty. On the Adult Swim subreddit and across YouTube, a trend emerged where fans would flood the comments of Rick and Morty posts, actively rooting for the show to be cancelled so that more funding could go towards Smiling Friends. Even when other users pushed back and pointed out that Adult Swim had more than enough space for both shows, they were often dismissed with trolling remarks like, room temperature IQ, nah, no dad, or ass opinion. And that was the part that made the whole thing feel less like a real fandom and more like people looking for a fight. A lot of observers felt the conflict was being manufactured by fans who simply wanted drama to exist. As one commenter put it, they were basically fabricating drama where there is none, going as far as to cross-post insults between subreddits just to stir the pot. Another user pointed out the hypocrisy of the situation, noting that Rick and Morty fans are often seen as the poster children of insufferable fans, so watching the two groups clash felt less like one side being right and more like a fight between two fan bases, both trying to outdo each other while hiding behind "it's just a joke." By acting like gatekeepers, these fans treated the network's lineup like a competition, where one show's success must come at the expense of another. In their eyes, Smiling Friends is the successor supposed to replace the old guard, even if that meant rooting against Rick and Morty instead of just supporting their own show. That constant need for edgy confrontation kept the community stuck in the same cycle, less about enjoying the show and more about creating drama around it. And while this subreddit beef was mostly just digital noise, our next case shifts from petty internet arguments into the territory of real-world crime. Level 4. The Trenches. Case 4. Chris Chan. Back in 2021, while the first season of Smiling Friends was still in production, the creators introduced a background character named Grease, which was a literal puddle of sentient oil appearing in the episode, who violently murdered Simon S. Salty. But this character wasn't just a random creation, as it was explicitly designed as a parody of Christine Weston Chandler, an internet personality known as Chris Chan. What made it even more disturbing was that the parody went far beyond just copying Chris Chan's appearance, as the team actually intended for the real Chris Chan to provide the voiceover for the role. That idea came from how deeply Zach Hadel had followed her story online. It spent so much time watching and keeping up with Chris Chan lore that it started bleeding into his daily life, to the point where he mentioned in an interview that he would quote her family's old videos dozens of times a day.
Zach, did you get that idea because of that video you were obsessed with? You mentioned on an earlier episode we did together, where his dad walks in on him
well,
and yells at him.
Yeah, that too. I've been obsessed with that video. I quote that probably once every
80 times a day.
He even described it as a tic he had picked up, where these specific internet moments were always at the front of his mind. which is likely why he felt that bringing her onto the show was the perfect way to reference that subculture. However, the plan to officially hire her was pushed back because the crew was well aware of her reputation for being unable to keep a secret, and they were genuinely concerned that she would break her non-disclosure agreement the moment she signed it.
If you tell them now, they're gonna go on Twitter and go, "I was just in the cartoon."
I was just approached by Hollywood, and now I'm
Yeah, exactly.
And since they were worried that if they brought her on too early, she would inevitably leak the entire plot of the episode to her followers, they made the decision to wait until the very end of the production cycle before they reached out with an offer. But by the time the team finally felt it was safe to contact her, they discovered that the show's budget for celebrity guest stars had completely run out, leaving them with no funds to actually pay her for the role. Because of this sudden financial roadblock, they had to pivot and hire voice actor Harry Patridge instead, who was instructed to perform the lines with a specific childlike southern drawl. The last-minute budget problem ended up looking like a huge stroke of luck for the network, as it saved them from a catastrophic association. On July 30, a leaked recording went viral where Chandler appeared to admit to having sexual relations with her 79-year-old mother. The leak, which was allegedly connected to someone posing as a woman named Bella, contained graphic details claiming these assaults had been happening multiple times a week since June, even mentioning her mother's struggles with dementia. The fallout was immediate, leading to Chandler's arrest on August 1, 2021 on charges of incest. Although the case was eventually dismissed in 2023 following a mental health deferral, the timing reveals a disturbing truth. While the creators were planning a fun cameo, the person behind the meme was involved in something far more dark behind the scenes. What had been framed for years as internet absurdity suddenly looked far less harmless once real criminal accusations entered the picture. And finally, while the community is mostly quieter in the present day, with far fewer ongoing controversies compared to what came before, we've now reached the bottom of the iceberg. This is the point where all the most serious and disturbing issues sit together at their lowest depth. Level 5. The Void. Case 5. The Sleepy Cabin or Shadman Proximity. In 2015, Zach Hadel and several other well-known animators shared a house with an artist who went by the name Shadman. During this time, he was a regular part of their social circle and even appeared as a guest in their Sleepy Cabin podcast, where the crew famously discussed his boundary-pushing persona. However, this collaboration eventually turned into a major point of controversy as the public began to question the collaboration, with people saying, "How is there such a well-known lolly porn artist just hanging around the internet going on podcasts? How is this dude famous? And how is he not in jail?" Shadman, whose real name is Shaddai Prageen, had been a staple of the Newgrounds community since 2009, building a massive following and gaining rapport with major creators like Belle Delphine. But as his career progressed, his work moved from simple adult cartoons into lolly art, which explicitly depicts children in suggestive situations. By 2016, he began depicting real-life minors, including the 7-year-old daughter of YouTuber Keemstar. However, the situation reached a breaking point in 2017 when he created a violent, pornographic piece of 12-year-old actress Daphne Keane from the movie Logan. The image was so disturbing that her representatives had it scrubbed from the web, and Shadman was dropped by his own web host. Following these events, Shadman gradually lost his support system, with former friends like those at OniPlays cutting ties. However, the controversy surrounding his old associations was reignited recently during the Ava Chris Tyson scandal. It was revealed that Tyson had purchased art from Shadman, an act seen by many as endorsing a pedophile. This led to internet users creating extensive lists of every creator who had ever interacted positively with him, specifically targeting anyone who stayed associated with him after he started depicting real children in 2016. But it all came crashing down in October 2021, when he was arrested in Los Angeles on 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon. Court documents revealed he was held on bail while his lawyers raised doubts about his mental competency, leading to multiple psychiatric examinations. This made Shadman one of the most radioactive figures in the internet, forcing the community to question the thin line between edgy humor and the support of a criminal. And that wraps our Smiling Friends Iceberg. It's a strange reality that while the show's entire mission is to bring happiness to a dark world, the history of its community and associations has a number of times often led to the exact opposite.